Exodus chapter 22 today. Exodus 22 is where we're going to be at primarily. We might make forays elsewhere, though. And I have entitled my lesson today. I don't know if lessons get a title. I know sermons do. If lessons get a title, mine is going to be today, Make the Bride Price Great Again. Okay? Make the bride price great again. So Exodus. What's that?
Put that one on a hat.
Good morning. Yes. Really? Hey, come on in. I was going to go knock on the door, but, you took my parking space, man.
Yeah, I know.
I'm playing.
I know.
He says, yeah, that too. All right. You're not supposed to take the pastor's parking space, especially when I choose the worst one in the whole entire.
No, I was being brave because last time we did that, I got a flat tire. So.
Oh, you were gonna do what?
Last time I did that, I got a flat tire.
What in the?
Right, parking right there.
Oh, well, why'd you park there again then?
Because it's a nice spot.
Okay.
Lots of room on the
Yep. I don't want to get blocked in by all the.
Oh no, that's a good place to go. For sure, yeah. If you need, because you can get out of there anytime you want.
Yeah,
it's good.
Like
All right.
last week, it was tough for me to get out through the parking lot.
I know.
From down back there, I'm like, holy cow, there.
Yeah.
Just four-wheel it through the grass, man. It's okay. It's all right.
Nice problem to have.
Yeah. Praise God. No, that's cool. Good to see you guys.
Yeah, you too. You too.
What's that? Oh, awesome. Praise God.
Awesome over here.
Well, yeah, Exodus 22 verses 16 and 17. Make the bride price great again is our lesson for today. Tongue in cheek, of course. But anyway, we're going to be looking at a section of the law. And of course, what we've seen is that it's since Exodus 20, since the Decalogue, we've seen a number of applications of the Decalogue. We've seen various ways in which these succinct commands work their way out in practical situations. Now, these are not exhaustive, but these give you a good idea of the direction that God intends as we filter through and we're trying to figure out how do we embody these laws, how do we apply them to our lives. But Exodus 22 verses 16 through 17 is sort of an intersection between the seventh commandment, which is, pause for dramatic effect. What's the seventh commandment? Anybody know?
You shall not commit adultery.
Yeah, you shall not commit adultery. So that's one. And the fifth commandment, which is honor your father and mother. Yes, the first one with the promise, right? So this is where we see an intersection. We'll see how they kind of work together. Now, the law of God, even though we have 10 commandments, or if you expand that out, we might say 618 commandments or whatever they've decided the eventual number is. Nonetheless, the law, you understand, stands as a unit. In the law, various parts of the law work off of one another in coordination with one another, such that when you break one law, James tells us what? You break them all. You're guilty of breaking them all. And that doesn't mean if I lie, I've killed somebody, but it might very well mean literally that happens. But it doesn't necessarily mean literally, but it shows the continuity, the unified nature of the law. All right, so we're going to look at an interesting section that touches on both the fifth and the seventh commandment. In verse 16 and 17. Clicker. There we go. It says this. It says, if a man seduces a virgin who is not betrothed and lies with her, he shall give the bride price for her and make her his wife. If her father utterly refuses to give her to him, he shall pay money equal to the bride price for virgins. Okay? So what we're talking about here is not a case of fornication with someone who is betrothed. That would be actual adultery, because someone who's betrothed has been promised, right? We're talking about people who are not betrothed. This is, whether these are people who are not married, not betrothed to be married, and they are. In what we see here is the man seduces a virgin who is not betrothed and lies with her. Now, what is interesting here is it doesn't say the woman seduces the man.
No, they put it squarely on the man.
Yeah, I think that's worth noting in passing. I mean, we see other places in Scripture where it talks about, for example, in the Proverbs, Proverbs talks a lot about the seductive woman. And so it's not that Scripture is denying the reality of a woman who intentionally and predatorily goes out and seduces men, right? That's there. However, the responsibility for the act is here anyway placed squarely on the shoulders of the man. That doesn't mean that she has no fault in it or that she has no responsibility, because she does. She sinned as well. But the emphasis here is on the person, the man who is intentionally going out to seduce the woman. So anyway, so we see that, and I just mentioned that in passing. This is a law, like I said, concerning virgins who are not betrothed. If you want to see the law about betrothed women, you can go back to Deuteronomy 22:25. And that it's it's just right down the passage there a little bit, right? Oh wait. I think I got the wrong reference there.
Deuteronomy 22 sounds.
Deuteronomy, yeah, never mind. It's Deuteronomy. I'm thinking
But it
Exodus.
is in a different book.
That's correct. Evidently, my brain hasn't caught up to that yet. All right, yeah, Deuteronomy 22. It is in a different book. And 25. We haven't talked about this particular one yet, but let's just briefly look at that for a second, just to read it anyway, just to know. It says, but if in, so this is talking about a man who is meeting a young woman and they're having sexual intercourse. He says, if in the open country a man meets a young woman who is betrothed and the man seizes and lies with her, then only the man who lay with her shall die. Now, I'm sorry. If we back up to verse 23, let's do that. It says, if there is a betrothed virgin and a man meets her in the city and lies with her, then you shall bring both of them to the gate, and you shall stone them to death with stones. The young woman, because she did not cry out for help, though she was in the city, and the man, because he violated his neighbor's wife. So you shall purge the evil from your midst. Now, in Deuteronomy 22, we have the law for a betrothed woman. This is not one who is legally wed yet. She's betrothed, although she's called a man's wife. So why is she put to death if she's in the city and doesn't cry out?
And she's complicit in it.
Exactly. So we see a couple things here, and I just want to mention this in passing. She's complicit in the act, meaning that this is not a case of sexual assault. This is not a case of rape. And why not? Well, because it's assumed that if she doesn't cry out, if she doesn't look for help, if she doesn't accuse the person, if she doesn't press charges, so to speak, then she's complicit in it. This speaks to the responsibility of a woman, if she has been assaulted, to immediately go to the authorities and tell them.
I think immediately is the key there. Because
Exactly.
She comes back a year later and says,
Or 10 years
no,
later.
Yeah.
Or
He assaulted
20 years later, or whenever the guy runs for Supreme Court or something,
Yeah.
or for president.
And they ask, well, was it in the city? Well, yeah. Well, why didn't we hear about it?
Yeah.
Why
So
didn't we hear you screaming?
got a rock in my hand now. Okay, let's talk now. No, that's exactly right. Immediately is the necessity. And this is something that is lost on the sort of Me Too movement idea, because they say, well, we need to believe women. Well, yes, we need to believe women for credible charges, and if the evidence points to that, certainly their testimony counts. But do not think for a second that a woman is above lying about a man assaulting her to get him in trouble and to cause issues for him. And men need to be protected. The innocent party, whoever it is, needs to be protected. And we don't know who it is until they've gone through the trial. So,
Well, and the worst thing about that is that you can't, 20 years down the road,
you can't. Yeah,
it's her word
It's he said,
against
she
his.
says.
Yeah.
it is a social media character assassination.
Exactly.
Now, maybe allowances are given for children because they don't know what's going on. They don't know what to do. But as an adult, this is the kind of thing that we need to be teaching our children. That if somebody does this, you need to come immediately if you're not comfortable going to the police, go to your father, go to your uncle, go to your big brother, whatever, so that we can get this confronted, right? Now, the idea of it being in a city, back then there's no windows, you would be able to hear, and that would be able to be established, right? So, but the idea here is that you need to bring charges immediately. It needs to be now, not sometime in the future, not sometime later.
Now, even to the extent that we can hear your voice while you're being assaulted.
Exactly.
And if we don't hear that voice, then we can assume that you're being complicit.
Yeah. Now there are cases. He's got a knife to her throat.
Right.
If you talk, I'm going to slit your throat. Okay, I get it. All those things get adjudicated.
Right.
But there's a necessity. The general principle here is that there's a necessity to report.
Yep.
So we were accused of not reporting on an issue of sexual thing a few years back. I think you all remember that with Hannah Kate and everything. We were accused of that, which it was not even something that we knew about. I'm still not convinced ever even took place, but because of what happened afterwards and her lack of credibility. But nonetheless, my whole point was, hey, we didn't know about it, number one, and if we did know about it, we would have told somebody the moment we knew about it. In fact, the moment that I did know about the accusation, I encouraged the young lady to go and report it to the authorities, and she said, "Well, I've already got a lawyer working on it." Okay, great. So everything's being taken care of. Now let's go back and talk to people about it. Okay, and that's what we did. So we didn't put it out publicly. It was a personal thing, but yeah. Anyway, don't need to rehash all that mess. But there is a duty to report. Now, so it's a law, but this is a law, though. The one we're talking about today in Exodus 22 is a law concerning virgins who are not betrothed. Virgins who are not betrothed. And the law for virgins who are not betrothed, wait a second. Yeah, okay, there we go. The law for the virgins who are not betrothed, the betrothal period, understand this, and we saw this in Deuteronomy 22, is that the betrothal period is legally binding. They were considered man and wife, even though they were not technically wed. She was still in her father's house, but she was technically considered his wife in all but the fact they had not consummated the marriage, and she was not living in his house. But this is during the betrothal period.
Mary and Joseph were like,
Yeah, exactly. That's a great example. I mean, Mary and Joseph were betrothed, and she was found to be with child before they came together. And this would have, Deuteronomy 22 would have applied to her. Could have applied to her. But what is interesting in that, and I don't want to make this about Deuteronomy 22, is that even though that was the law, what does the Bible say about Joseph when he decided to put her away quietly without accusing her? It says that he was a just man. In other words, he was just, even though the law demanded that she be stoned in front of her father's house, which, by the way, is what that text goes on to say. Even though the law demanded she be stoned in front of her father's house, he was a just man for disregarding that punishment, which shows you that when we talk about, many times when you see in the law gives you the most that you are able to do to that person for the violation of that law. It doesn't ever discount the possibility of mercy, although, again, that must be adjudicated. And, I mean, there has to be somebody that accuses. There has to be an accusation made. There has to be in this sort of thing. But there are times also where the law says you shall show no mercy. In other words, you don't have the ability to go and say, okay, I'm going to be merciful in this case. So that needs to be taken into consideration as well. But okay, so anyway, let's move on to this. Back to this. If a man seduced a virgin who was not betrothed, so she's not been promised to anybody, he must pay the bride price. What is the bride price?
Deuteronomy 22 says that again, actually.
No, I know. We're getting there. So yeah, what is a bride price, actually? Well, let's talk about what a bride price is. Just a general definition of what a bride price is, because this has been practiced by many different cultures throughout history. A general definition of what the bride price is a sum of wealth that is given to the family of the bride by the groom as part of the betrothal agreement. Now, modern day God haters will look at this and they'll say, well, this is just purchasing your wife. So, who cares what God haters say? Number one. Okay, so maybe it is, maybe it isn't. We've seen an example of this happening. We just got finished. Well, we got finished a little while back. An expository walk through the book of Genesis that took a couple of years. What happened? Do you remember what happened with Abraham when he went looking for a bride for his son? What did he do? Well, he wasn't able to go and do it himself, so he sent his servant out to go find a bride for his son, Isaac, right?
He worked for the father for 7 years.
Oh, that's Jacob. But yeah, that's another point. Yeah,
Yes.
that's another example, because he didn't have money for a bride price. So what did he do? He worked for 7 years for each woman. 7 years worth of labor. I mean, multiply 7 years by a common laborer's wage. What is that?
I don't know that.
What's that? Oh, I disagree.
I
But
do too. I'm kidding.
But think about that: 7 years of labor, and now obviously you deduct, pay, how room and board for that, and of course, but still, yeah, taxes. It's about half of it right there, right? but yeah, this is a symbol. So we saw that with Jacob. We saw Abraham sending camel loads of gold and jewels and all manner of things to the family of the bride, right? So it was a sum of wealth paid to the family of the bride by the groom as part of the betrothal agreement. In other words, if you wanted to get married, you had to come up with some money. You had to cough up the cash.
Because you're replacing her work in that home.
Absolutely.
You're
What did-
taking her
what
out
did
of
your-
the home.
What did your brother and sister feel like when you left?
They are still drowning.
I know, because I went there for a couple of weeks, and I'm like, what are they going to do without her? That's literally what I was thinking.
Well, and I think also it leads to the fact, definitely, that you're replacing her loss, but also they want to make sure that you're going to be able to take care of their daughter.
Oh yeah, you've got to have. Yeah, if you don't have
You
a
don't
way
have
of
the
making a
means.
living, yeah. Think about the implications of this. You're not going to have a broke dude showing up courting your daughter. You're going to tell him to hit the curb.
No regrets tattooed across.
Yeah, get out of here, pal. Which we should be doing anyway. But that sort of thing. And what kind of man is this going to? What kind of men are young boys going to aspire to be if they know that the only way that they're going to be able to hook up with this girl is that if they pay the price, they're going to be productive from an early age. They're going to be responsible. They're going to be achieving something in their lives. God is here using the sexual impulse of young men to funnel that into productivity, culturally speaking. Now talk to me about buying and selling a bride. And look at what we got going on today compared to what that would inspire.
And also, God haters they'll pull that specific thing and say, well, they're just buying brides. What does that have to do with God's word? Because this is what common practice that was going on throughout the world. It wasn't just the Jews.
Yeah.
Weren't doing this because God told them to do it. It was common practice throughout the world.
Sure. Now the bride price, and I just want to bring this up as a point of contrast, so we understand what the bride price is, and we get a hint at where it's heading. Well, how's that compared to a dowry? Now, a dowry is a different thing. The dowries were so there are different cultures practice. The Hebrews practiced bride price. The Greeks and Romans practiced dowry, and that came on down through the Middle Ages. For the Western world, they practice dowries. I mean, you read Jane Austen novels. They talk about that all the time, right? I don't know. I've never read a Jane Austen novel actually, but that's looked at as the pinnacle of virtue of Western civilization in terms of courtship. They had a dowry. What does a dowry do? Well, a dowry is a sum of wealth given by the groom to the family of the bride. So it works in the opposite way. So this is given to the groom or the family of the groom for the family of the bride. And basically the idea here is okay, you get the wealth that the bride brings with her. That way you can start off life in a better footing. That's generally the rationale behind it. But think about what that might do. What does the dowry inspire? Get rid of this girl. Right. Here's some money. Take her.
She's from a wealthy family.
What's that?
She's from a wealthy family.
Yeah, she's from a wealthy family. So now you're looking at women not just in terms of, how beautiful they are, but how much money they're an investment. So I don't know, is this a capitalist way of viewing women? I get the girl and the money. What is this going to inspire men to do now?
Look for rich women.
Look for rich girls, yeah.
Which they did.
Which they do even
In
today.
England, when the English came over here.
Sure.
Yeah.
They look for rich women. They don't look for virtuous women.
It brings to mind a book that I read. It's The Seven Daughters and Seven Sons.
Yeah. I've heard of that book. I've not read it.
It's I don't know, Middle Eastern or something.
Uh-huh.
But the father is extremely impoverished
Yeah.
because he has to find a way to marry off all these girls.
Tell me about it.
He doesn't have the money to do it.
Yeah.
And
Only
so
makes
they're
money
going to
worse
be
than
old
it.
maids, and then he'll never get rid of them because he couldn't give the bride price, he couldn't give the dowry at all.
Yeah.
And that it impoverishes a family to do it that way.
Sure. Tradition, right? Tradition.
That's
So,
different.
yeah, it is. But yeah, no, that's a. And what do you do when this all of a sudden makes girls a liability?
And you're not only taking away the wealth, but also the work. So
Well, assuming they do work, because I mean, seriously, in this sort of culture, your women are looked at as a liability. Your daughters are looked at as a liability, not as a commodity, or not as a. So they criticize looking at women as a commodity here, as property, but they don't. This is even worse. This is far worse. And what kind of virtues are so? I'm an impoverished man. I've got 5 daughters, right? How am I going to get rid of my daughters?
you train them in all the arts and try to make them very attractive.
Yeah, I mean that's really all I can do, right? So now they become China dolls for trade, rather than virtuous, productive, industrious, intelligent, hardworking women. So that has been the Western world by and large, and that's we look at marriage as sort of a way to advance ourselves in this sort of thing. But think about what a dowry would do. The bride price is a cultural recognition of the value of daughters to the household economy. It's not buying and selling women. It's not buying a bride and selling a bride. When we see Rebecca, they've got camel loads of gold and jewels, and Rebecca is still given the choice: do you want to go with this guy? It's not the buying and selling of a bride. Not if it's done in a Christian way. I'm sure that can happen, but not if it's done in a godly, redeemed way. It is a cultural recognition of the value of daughters to the household economy. Pretty soon, Rachel's getting married.
Maybe just asking what.
And what's that? And I'm like, I need some transfer of wealth to cover what like is going to be missing now that she's gone. No. I say no, that's all right. Just grandbabies is all it's going to cost you. That's all. But anyway, no, it is the bride price is a cultural recognition. The recognition that once that girl is gone, it is going to leave a vacuum where she was. Who are we going to get to do what she did, to perform the duties that she did? I mean, and so what, we hire servants to do that? I mean, because families had to do that sort of thing, right? Because
That's what my mother did.
Well, there you go.
She really did.
Do what?
They got a younger maid when I left.
Oh my gosh.
So I mean, that just shows that. So that wealth helped pay for those servants, right? And that was, of course, you could maintain then the household. You could maintain the household economy that way. And notice that shows, and the Bible assumes and demonstrates the value of women in their households, to their households. If they are productive, industrious women, virtuous women that build their houses rather than tearing them down, they are of great value. Well, so this man is to pay the bride price. What time we got now? Oh yeah, we're good. This forces a man to consider his future wife in terms of her many and varied virtues, not just in terms of her waist size and how pretty she looks. Feminists all the time are complaining. You just want her for her body. Well, you want to get away from that? Let's go back to patriarchy. Let's go back to the bride price. Because here, what's that?
No, they just sent a bunch of feminists up the plane.
Yeah, their heads are on fire, I'm sure.
Happens all the time.
It's really easy to
We
offend
don't hide
feminists, actually.
It's not hard either. It's like, give me something more challenging.
Yeah, really. All you gotta do is say, make me a sandwich. My shirt needs ironing, stuff like that. That's all you gotta do to offend a feminist. It's not hard. But seriously, think about the logic of this. If a man is going to have to pay for a woman and pay for his wife, he wants to get as much bang for the buck as he can, right? Okay, pardon the modern colloquialism. And she's attractive. That's great. But if she's attractive and lazy, she's worthless. If she's attractive and vicious rather than virtuous, she's worthless. So a man is then forced to consider more than just the pretty face and the ideal figure when it comes to whom he's going to marry. If he's going to pay for her, he's going to consider those things much, much more seriously. Also,
Not consider the number of zeros on that figure.
yeah, or how much she's worth, yeah. And then, 30 camels, was that it?
That was Travis. And
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, it was a couple of, that we had the pleasure of hosting once upon a time, Travis and Jenny. And they were engaged, and they came back to live in the States. She was ministering in Muslim Africa. He was ministering in Muslim Afghanistan. Do you remember them? Yeah. And
Really?
he's a doctor now.
Oh, wow.
He's a doctor in Chicago.
Wow.
Anyway, and he's bald, which is kind of funny. But anyway, Travis, he was a great guy. But they came back, and he lived with us for a while because they came back and they got an apartment that she lived at, and then he lived with us, and he lived with Tom and Shirley for a while as well. But anyway, when she was back in Africa, she was approached by a man to be his, I think, fifth wife or something like that, maybe third wife or whatever, because that sort of thing's legal there. And he says, how many camels would your father want in order to, for a bride price? I want to make you my fifth wife, I guess, because that was the place of honor. Like, this is the wife that you buy when you're wealthy. You don't have to, but you want to. So, and he says, I will give him a camel in exchange. And she says, a camel? She says he wants, I don't know what the figure was. I thought it was like 100 or something.
100, yeah.
She was like, he wants at least 100 camels. And he says, 100 camels? That's way too much money for you. And so when Travis heard about this, she was engaged to him. He went and got a bunch of little camel figurines and stuff like that.
He got
And
100 of them.
He got, over time, started mailing them to her father, all these little camel things. I was like, did you give him a pack of cigarettes? No, that wasn't included. But so at the wedding reception, they had all these camels on display in various places throughout the wedding reception. I thought that was pretty cool. But so he gave her father however many camels. So anyway, another logical conclusion of the bride price. Not only does it force a man to consider his future wife in terms of her many and varied virtues, it also forces a father to raise daughters to be virtuous and industrious rather than lazy and pretty.
Because if you don't, they won't be worth it.
They're not going to get married, and you're going to be stuck with her, and she's going to be a lazy and a non-industrious bachelorette in your house for the rest of your life. Yeah. So think about what this sort of practice would do for the households of America. And I suggest we make the bride price great again.
Make what?
The bride price great again.
Okay. Oh, okay.
No, seriously.
Very, very good hat though. That can't really say the acronym right.
Make BP great again. Yeah, they think I was talking about a filling station or something. Yeah. So anyway, but that's my suggestion. But that was the cultural practice, and it actually works to benefit and reinforce the household, and it actually works to benefit the carrying on of the culture to the future generations. And it works to benefit industry. It works to affect and benefit all of these things in society that we are currently having many problems with. Anyway, just a thought. But anyway, but it also allows the family of the groom to have input to the choice of the bride. Because if I have a son who wants to get married, and I get to meet his intended fiance, then who's going to give him the money to marry this young lady? If I don't approve of it, it certainly isn't going to be me. He can go and raise his own money for her if he wants her. And maybe, hopefully, during the raising of his money, he realizes what kind of a vicious woman she is. Yeah, that would be nice. That'd be nice.
Hey, if he's got to work 7 years for her, he's probably going to figure some things out.
Yeah, well, exactly. Because if he doesn't have the money to pay, he's got to make it himself somehow. He's got to show himself worth it. So yeah, this would vastly improve. This would be a vast improvement over what the current model that we are under. Now let's get back to the original text. If the father of the woman was willing, the offending man would be forced to marry the woman. So he goes and he seduces her. He takes advantage of her. It was not a situation of assault. It was not a situation of forced of rape, but it was consensual. He pays the bride price, and if the father says, "Okay, take her," he can take her. If the father says no, if the father of the woman is not willing to give her as a wife, he still gets the bride price and kicks the guy to the curb. And the guy has to go and make bride price for whoever he wants to marry later on. That's the deal. So here's the question. So either way, dad still gets paid. So here we see an intersection of the 7th and the 5th commandment. The man's fornication with the woman is a sin against the woman's father and his household. It's not just a sin against her. It's a sin against her father and his household. That's not a thing that we think of nowadays. Because the father has the responsibility to protect his daughter and to keep her virtuous and to protect her reputation and to protect her marriageability and this sort of thing. I'll have a seat. But if he does not do that, then, or if she goes behind his back and forsakes his law and defiles the father's house, by the way, Deuteronomy 22, that's what it calls it. That's why it prescribes death for the woman who has done this, the betrothed woman, because she has done such a terrible sin in her father's house. That is a sin against the father. Again, the Bible tells, what is the 5th commandment? You shall honor your father and mother. And here the daughter clearly is dishonoring her father by doing such a sinful thing in her father's house.
Just as if she was married, she would be sinning against her husband.
Yes. And, there's a lot of criticism that people levy toward this concept of the father being in the place of the husband for the daughter when she's growing up. But that's just because they're God haters. That's just because they can't understand that God gives protection for women. First in the form of their earthly fathers, and then in the form of their husbands, earthly fathers and brothers, and then in the form of her husband and sons later on in life. That is God's plan for the protection of women, and it's a good plan because not only does it protect the woman, but it also domesticates the man. It brings him into control, into line. He has a job to do. Otherwise, men go crazy. There's this big movement of, well, we just got to let boys be boys. And schools make them sit still and be quiet. And I get that sentiment. Don't worry. But there's also a place for telling a boy to sit down and be quiet and be respectful. And you need to learn to harness your twitches, your restlessness as a young man. You need to bring that under control. And yes, you need to exercise that aggression as well in a godly way. So it's not just let the boys be crazy chimpanzees climbing the trees and hanging upside down from their feet. That's our school day. No, we need to bring order to their lives and structure to their lives, discipline. But yes, they're going to be boys. We don't slip them an Adderall every once in a while or whatever. We let boys be boys, but we also forge them into men. And that takes a lot of self-control. And by the way, the sexual impulse is a great tool to harness to do that. And that's exactly what this whole system does. That's why the 5th commandment. Because you can take that which God has given man and given man strongly, and you can use it as a harness on him. He can use it as a harness for himself, so that impulse is channeled into productivity. The father of the woman is given authority to judge the matter. Why might the father choose to give his daughter as the man's wife? And why might the father choose not to give the daughter as the man's wife? We got a minute or two, don't we?
Literally.
Well, if he chooses not to, he could possibly, the guy's not worthy of his daughter.
Sure, yeah. This guy's a dirtbag. He's already gone behind my back. What can I expect from him in the future?
On the other end of the spectrum,
Yeah.
she's been defiled.
Right.
Now it's gonna be harder to marry her off because she's no longer a virgin.
Yeah, it would be different if she had been a widow, because men would have looked at that and they would have seen this woman's ability to live as a virtuous wife, and they might desire that, right? So she has been sexually active. She's not a virgin anymore, but she's a widow. Or it may even be better if she had been divorced. But this is because maybe her husband or previous husband had been an unbearable jerk, or something like that. And he had just kicked her out so he could take a younger version, a newer model, upgrade, whatever. And that might be known, and so she might still be desirable even in that situation. But if she has been fornicating in her father's house, that's a different level of disrespect. So if a woman is doing that in the house of her father, what's she going to do that in my house? And that's how the logic would go. It's sort of a double-edged sword. There are negatives and positives both ways.
I find it interesting that the next verse down,
Oh yeah.
18th verse,
Mhm.
thou shalt not suffer a witch to live.
Yes, we're going over that next week. That's going to be great. But go ahead. What were you going to say?
Oh, I
Larry?
just find it interesting that they put that right after. It's like, well, he enticed a maid, but you also don't let a witch live. So
Yeah.
if there was some sort of interesting things going on there, you better look into it.
Yeah. Well, and we talk about witches. We know witches. We've confronted them before. We've been cast spells on before by them. They've cast spells on us. But where did we meet them? We met them at the abortion clinic. We didn't meet them in church. We met them at the abortion clinic, a place that is necessary for the glorification of sexual sin. And that's where they were. And they were vehemently defending that. That's telling. Yeah, witches and sexual sin go hand in hand. Absolutely. All right. Well, I think that's about all the time we have today. So interesting. Let's make the bride price great again. Recently, did you already turn me off? Okay. Recently, there has been a big hubbub. I don't know if you've seen this. With a CNN interview that it was done in Moscow, Idaho, with Doug Wilson and some other pastors out in Christ Church. One of the things that caught a bunch of flack was that the interviewer asked them about comments that had been made about overturning the 19th Amendment. You know what the 19th Amendment is?
It's the women's suffrage.
Yeah, women's suffrage. So the idea was abolishing the 19th Amendment so that women don't get the right to vote. And one of the pastors says, "I'd be okay with that. I'd support that." I think that's what he said, right? I'd support that. That's what he got beat for. And so they just got all kinds of feminist hate mail, feminist hairs on fire everywhere. One of the things that they went into, and the CNN interview did a great job at letting them say this, is they were like, "Look, here's the problem with women's suffrage. What did it do? Well, it divided households. It made the focus of the vote in society on the individual rather than on the household. What we would support and what they do in their church is what they call household voting. So the head of the household casts the vote for the entire household. So in my family, I've got 4 kids at home. My vote plus my wife, my vote would count for 6. So when I go to vote for president, my vote would count for 6. What would that encourage you to do?
Have my kids.
Get married, have lots of kids.
My mom.
Yeah.
Both went to the polls for the 2024 election.
Yeah.
And while they were there, he saw a couple used to be coworkers of his
Mhm.
who were there for the same purpose. And he was like, "Well, that feels nice. I know my vote just got canceled out."
The husband did because of the wife, or
My dad was thinking,
Oh.
this,
yeah,
my wife and I's votes just got canceled out. So
Yeah.
his mom and dad's votes were just
because of the other
because
couple.
of this other couple that was also there.
Sure.
Just because he knew them. It's like, no, wait a second. I've got 9 children,
Yeah.
4 of which can vote,
Yeah.
3 of which are married.
Yeah.
And their
Their
spouses
votes.
can vote too.
Yeah.
And I've still got all the rest to.
Boom.
Their cats didn't vote.
Exactly.
Nor will they take care of their owners,
Right.
in their old age, nor will they have any effect on society.
Absolutely.
Other than a net negative.
We need to recapture the concept of households. And anyway, and you know, the thing wasn't against women voting, by the way. It's possible for a woman to be the head of the household. Widows, if a woman is kicked to the curb by her husband, if she's been divorced, she's the head of her household. So,
Lydia, the purple fabric lady.
yeah, Lydia, yeah, she was the head of her household. It talked about Lydia and her household.
Yep.
So, I mean, she was the head. So it's not against women voting per se. It's against dividing the household. Yeah, but your household would be limited to the number. Now, that would bring a whole new dimension to trying to get custody of your children too, I think. It might make people fight harder for it. So anyway, that's another discussion for another time. Make the bride price great again. God bless you guys. Let's pray, and I'll see you upstairs. Father God, thank you for your goodness. Thank you for your word. I pray, Lord,